Hey guys, it's Brant here. I'm back within my head channel, back to review another Kiss album, and I've got my friend Scott Rock here with me. That's his real name. And Scott's a huge Kiss fan, and he plays in a band, local band here called Throwdown Jones. It's just awesome. They're an awesome band, and he's the bassist. And he's a big Gene Simmons fan, of course, and he's got the tattoo and got the autograph. And so you've been a fan for a long time. So how long have you been a Kiss fan?
Since birth, actually.
Okay.
No, my first image of them was the Mike Douglas show. My mom used to watch that, and my grandparents used to watch that. So then I saw Gene on there. I didn't know anything of it. I thought it was just a movie character. But then sometime after that, I caught them again on the Paul Lynde show.
Right.
It was a Halloween special, and at that point, my curiosity just went through the roof. So next thing you know, I'm going to the record store with my parents, and Kiss is all over the place. The posters, the albums. You know, back when you can actually hold the album in your hand and become one with it. It was like going to something you've never seen before, and you just fall in love. Right. So yeah, that was my first sighting. It started very early on. So. Okay.
And so, I know that you've met Gene. Have you met anybody else in Kiss?
I've met them all.
Okay.
Peter, Ace, super. I met Ace a couple times. Once at his art showing in Union, New Jersey, with a friend of mine. We used to do a radio show in college, and an hour of my radio show was dedicated to Kiss. So we ended up going to that. We went to a Kiss convention in Teaneck, New Jersey. Also went to one in Orlando, where I got to hang out with Peter Criss there. And then I went to the official one in Miami with Eric and Bruce and Gene and Paul. And that was an all-day event. Got to hang out there. And on different occasions, where I got to hang out with Gene in his hotel room. Yeah, that's a great story. But
I've seen the picture of that. That's awesome. He's in his robe, just hugged up to you. That's awesome.
It was interesting because we spent a lot of time talking about coincidences. You know, the Diet Coke. At the time, I drank Diet Coke like it was water, and the cookies. And that's, you know, him and I. He's like, I said, Gene, my mom took me to my first Kiss concert. He goes, I know your mom.
That's true Gene fashion
that's
right
true
there.
Gene fashion.
Yeah.
And just the similarities where we just had a great time.
Yeah.
Spent a couple hours just hanging out in this hotel room. And one of the most intelligent guys you can have a conversation with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
In all spectrums.
I don't know if you saw it, but me and my son did a video. We were talking about the 4 original members, not really talking about any members after that, but not really talking about your favorite. But we did a video talking about who in Kiss would you most like to meet. And his turned it out, I thought it was going to be Ace because he's a guitarist, but his turned out to be Paul because he loves Paul's songwriting. And I think Paul Stanley is an amazing songwriter. He does what I call Paul Stanley constructions. He crafts songs, you know. And I've compared Gene to like a patchwork worker, like a lady that knits quilts, because he'll take part of something from here and part of something from here, like Man of a Thousand Faces. He turned that, he took stuff out of that and turned it into like 4 different songs. So he's a master of putting things together. But when it came to who I would want to meet the most, it was Gene, because I felt like sitting down and just talking with Gene and meeting Gene, I knew I'd be able to carry on an intelligent conversation, and I knew that he's, you know, he knows so much about so much. You know, I heard that he's got a book getting ready to come out called 27, about the 27 Club. You know, all these people that died at 27, Cobain, Joplin, Hendrix, you know, Morrison. And man, I'm looking forward to reading that. I've read his book. I've read a couple of his books. But I'm really looking forward to that book too. So I would love to sit down and you know, I actually considered coming up with the $2,000 to go to one of his vaults just to spend 10 minutes, you know, getting a vault and getting it signed and spending 10 minutes talking to him, you know, because I really would love to meet him.
If it's an opportunity to take, go for it.
Yeah. See, I've never met anybody in Kiss. I've been a lifelong Kiss fan and never been in an opportunity or a place to meet them. You know,
there's not a moment that Bruce in particular. I thought, you know, he's just the part-time guy, and I'm thinking he's not really a member of Kiss, but meeting him was spectacular. Yeah, Eric Singer, super, beyond words. Those guys are very appreciative of everything. I had the opportunity to meet Eric Carr, but I kind of blew that at the Animalize concert that I went to. Yeah. When I come back to my seat and then I see these people sitting in, my brother and my friends, or all these people sitting in our seats, and I was like, listen, get out of our seats. I was 13 years old at the time, you know, stupid. Yeah. And the old man goes, well, we're here to see our son play drums. Yeah, right. Whatever. Get out of my seat. Right. So, he's like, listen, we'll go backstage and you can meet them. All right, whatever. Get out of our seats. Well, it was, Eric's dad.
Oh, man. So. Terrible. Well, you got to have at least a few things you kick yourself for, you know?
Yeah. I do want to meet Vinny at some point. Yeah. One of my favorite musicians of all time, songwriters. Yeah,
definitely. I don't know of anything else to ask you. I mean, I could probably sit down and we and you could sit down and just probably talk about Kiss for the whole night. But we're going to get on talking about Lick It Up, and maybe we can have you back for, if you enjoy today, we can have you back for another review. Sure. I know there's another album in the future. We're not going to talk about it yet, but there's another album in the future you're thinking about coming back for. So hopefully we can have you back, and we can. And if the viewers have any questions, they can pose them in the comments, and we can do that. But what we're here to do today is we're here to review this album right here. We're here to review Lick It Up from 1983. 1983. We're here to review Lick It Up, and so we're going to get started right now. Lick It Up is the 11th studio album by Kiss and the 22nd overall. It was recorded from July to August in 1983 and released on September 18th, 1983. It was produced by Michael James Jackson, Paul Stanley, and Gene Simmons. It was recorded and mixed at Right Track Studios, New York by Frank Filippetti, Maura Marquise, with additional engineering by Dave Whitman and Stephen Benben at Atlantic Studios, New York, and Kenny Kavico at Hit Factory, New York. There would be no outside writers on this album, with 8 of the 10 songs co-written by Vinny. This would be Vinny's first and only official Kiss album. He had co-written and recorded some guitar tracks for previous album, Creatures of the Night. Rick Derringer was the only outside musician, and he only played the solo on one track. Lick It Up's sound continued to be in the same vein of Creatures, as Kiss was trying to continue to build their fan base back up, even though Creatures wasn't a commercial success at the time for them. And me and you were talking about this a little bit before we started, and you made the comment, you said that fans at this time was not listening with their ears, they were listening with their eyes. Right. And I've heard a statement from Paul saying that too. And they feel like that's why, even though Creatures was a really good album, and Lick It Up, they're almost like bookends. They're like in the same vein with each other. Same producers.
At that time, we didn't appreciate the music. It was more about the flash. It was more about what was right in front of you, what was on MTV at the time. And for them to take their makeup off.
Right, that's what built this up. If they had took their makeup off with Creatures would have been a bigger hit. Absolutely. Because I think that Creatures and Lick It Up are
and Ace was still attached to that, and that would have been a cash cow for the makeup as well.
Right. So
Kiss lost a lot of fans on this album.
They did. They did. Lick It Up would be the first album they would appear without makeup. Although Vinny had toured on the Creatures tour after Ace quit the band, he was not listed as official member of Kiss until Lick It Up. Like I said, Vinny co-wrote 8 of the 10 songs as an official member on Lick It Up, but he had also co-written 3 songs on Creatures and played 6 of the 9 solo tracks as an uncredited session musician. Vinny had major riffs with the band, especially Paul, that stemmed from his refusal to sign the contract. He was reportedly only being paid a weekly salary of $500. Vinny was also well known for playing solos that went on for way too long. One time in particular, he overplayed his solo and overplayed Paul's cue to stop playing. Vinny and Paul came to blows in the dressing room afterwards and had to be separated by Gene, Eric, and a couple roadies. Paul claimed he was being overstaged by Vinny, and Vinny claimed the band was trying to hold him back as a performer. After a second time of Vinny randomly breaking into a solo at the end of a show in Quebec, Canada, leaving the rest of the band awkwardly standing there, Vinny was fired. Paul and Gene evenly split lead vocals on this album with 5 tracks each. As far as charting goes, the album reached 24 on the U.S. charts and spent 27 weeks on the charts. The album was certified gold by the RIAA on December 22nd, 1983, and certified platinum on December 19th, 1990. So we talked a little bit about the packaging here. Now, here's one thing that I find really interesting about Lick It Up and what they did on the cover. Now, everybody knows they took the makeup off. And we were talking earlier about how they did it on MTV. You know, they came on MTV and J.J. Jackson and everything, and they took their makeup off. But the thing that I find interesting is a lot of people at this point in time, they took the makeup off, but a lot of people, they didn't care because Ace and Peter had already left the band. And honestly, although we have a really big vested interest in these two guys now because of the history 30 years later, Eric was still the new guy. And Vinny was still the new guy. I remember, because I remember some people going, well, which one's Peter and which one's Ace? That must be Ace and that must be Peter. No, that's neither one of them. But I also thought it was interesting that they appeared on this cover in street clothes. And I think this is a really good look for them. But then, and whenever it come to them doing their videos and their shows, they were glammed out. I mean, Gene went back to his heavy makeup and stuff. By the time they got to Animalize and Asylum, but they were trying to keep up with the Bon Jovis, and they were trying to keep up with the
right. That was the norm. That was the norm. Everyone went to the. I don't like to use the word hairband, but everyone went to the glam look or the over the top. Kiss always pushed the envelope at whatever they did.
Right.
Whether it was the makeup days or the non-makeup days. So, they're going to go with the flow. And even with, later albums, Carnival of Souls was a perfect example of how dark and how the way they dressed. I mean, it was significant times for them in the sense that it was 1990 something, and here we are in the grunge era. Right. And Kiss is trying to follow suit. So they tried to do that. Didn't work, but this album in particular, to me, was, and I think I could say this at this point, was the most important album to come out post makeup. It wasn't so much the music at the time; it was the whole idea of the makeup coming off. And at this point, fans were dropping off.
Right. Concerts
before this album came out, it was pitiful.
Right.
You see that one in Brazil, that show in Brazil where there's 200,000 people or whatever the amount of people. But when you come back in the States, they couldn't sell out anything.
They had arenas where they had a curtain, the black curtain dropped down halfway through, where they were only trying to sell half the arena, and even it was halfway empty. So they were only selling.
Got to see this.
They were only selling a quarter of an arena out. 12,000 seats. They were selling 2,000, 2,500 of them.
Well, you go from the elder to creatures,
right?
And the fans are what's going on with Kiss,
right? And
here we know exactly what's going on, and we've waited almost 10 years to see this, or actually a little bit more than 10 years to see this happen. The makeup comes off, and this is the biggest band. Kiss, the biggest band ever. Well, you're letting us down now.
Yeah.
Now, not only did they do this with the image, in my opinion, the music completely backed this up.
Right.
It wasn't. It wasn't Dynasty.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Great album. The music did not back up the image.
Right.
Now the music backed up the image. Now they're getting back up top.
Right.
Or starting to climb back again. So this was a very important album in Kiss history.
Yes, it was. So the packaging, it's just basically the band in street clothes without makeup.
Isn't it ironic that he's in like a purple pink color and everybody else is in black?
Right. And I mean, I'm sure
he's the odd man out.
I'm sure this was very well thought out. I'm sure this was very well calculated. Even to the point where I've saw outtakes of this photo shoot where Gene doesn't have his tongue out, and I'm pretty sure somebody at some point in time said, "Gene, stick your tongue out so people know who the demon is."
Yeah, and this was a precursor to the Invasion.
Right.
And this was a great jump start for Vinny.
Yes,
because
it was.
we were talking about the Dan Hartman band and the song "Instant Replay," where Vinny played guitar on.
Right. It was a disco.
It was a disco era song, and Vinny was all over that. He played Les Paul like it was going out of style. And here we go. We see him now with the biggest band in the world. And he fits right in.
Right.
It was a great mix.
And the guitar, you're more of a guitar man than me. Do you know what brand of guitar that he used when he was in Kiss?
It was Jackson.
It was a Jackson. Yeah. It was that Flying V type Jackson. It has a definitive sound. When Vinny, not just his playing style, but when his solos come in, you know it's him, not only because of his playing style, but the way his guitar sounds.
There were things later on that Gene and Paul used to down the over-the-top guitar player. I remember an interview with Gene where, he talked about Mark St. John.
Right.
I mean, honestly, that was the time.
Right.
Eddie Van Halen became the biggest guitar player.
Right.
And everyone wanted to be like.
Well, then you had bands like Nitro and stuff like that coming out with Michelangelo in it, where they're just shredding and they're sweep picking and they're doing all, and they're trying to see how many notes they can cram into a measure. That was the guitar. If you were going to be a guitarist, in the early to mid '80s,
you had to be comparable.
You had to have flash and balls, and you had to. Otherwise, it'd be like, oh, well, Vinnie Vincent can't play like so-and-so, so he sucks, So you had to get out there and play,
And he was totally different from Ace. The style was, way different type of guitar player.
Right.
And it fit what they were doing.
Right. So the back of the packaging is just the plain white. It's got the track listing on it. It's got credits on it, so it's just a plain white. Very, very simple. I think, and Kiss is calculated. So everything that they do is very well calculated. I don't think Kiss does anything by accident or on a whim. If it's there's a reason that they wanted to. The only thing you really have to see on this album is the band. It's a plain white background, plain white back, and even the insert on the inside is just a plain white with the lyrics.
And
no photos, no additional photos.
No tattoos.
No tattoos, no poster, nothing like that. And it's just a...
and it was their first run with their first album with Mercury at the time.
Yeah, and this is the Mercury album. Like I said, we were talking about this and recently discovered that this is the version I have is actually a repress because in addition to having Mercury on it, it also has Polygram on it. So Polygram, when they bought out the Kiss catalog, they repressed everything because they were trying to not only make money on the band making new music, but they were also trying to, if you own the catalog, why not repress it and put your name on it and everything and make some money off the back catalog too, So you can't blame them for that because after some of the things that they did, like some of the first albums that Kiss did for Polygram was the Unmasked and the Elder, and we all know how big of a sellers those were back in the day. And I said in my Elder review that whenever they delivered the Elder to Polygram, the execs at Polygram freaked out because that's the album they were promising after Unmasked. They got rid of Vinnie Poncia. They brought Bob Ezrin back on, who had made Destroyer with them, and they're like, oh, we're gonna make an album that's gonna kick ass. It's gonna be flashing balls. It's gonna be heavy. And then they come out with do 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 do. And although I love the Elder, but it is definitely it's more appreciated now as we've gotten older. By some than it was when we were young. Some people our age now, they still hate it.
You can steal a couple tracks off of that.
Oh yeah, there's some really good ones on there, and I like some of the ones that people typically don't like. I like songs like "Under the Rose," and a lot of people they all go straight for the Oath or whatever. And I like the
Paul
Oath.
really pushed his vocals on that album.
Yeah, he really did.
That was really good.
Really did. So. So we talked about everything, packaging everything. So what we're going to get into now is we're going to get into the songs. That's what everybody's wanting us to talk about. So that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to start with track 1 on the album, Exciter. Exciter was written by Paul Stanley and Vinnie Vincent, sang by Paul. Paul plays the rhythm, Gene plays the bass, Eric plays the drums. The lead solo is played by Rick Derringer. According to Vinnie, he loved the solo he recorded, but apparently Gene and Paul didn't, so they brought in Rick Derringer, and Vinnie wasn't made aware of this until after the fact. An instrumental rehearsal version of this song can be found online with the version of Vinnie's original solo. Now, as far as album starters go, I like Exciter. I mean, it's not the most bombastic song on the album, and it's not the most bombastic song that they probably could have started with, but it kind of sets it, you know, even at that very beginning, the way it starts at, and then Vinnie comes in with a solo right at the beginning, and I think that is Vinnie at the very beginning. I think Rick comes in later doing the lead solo towards the end. But and I don't know if that's Vinnie at the very end, because you know how this ends. When it ends, they're doing and it's I don't know if that's actually. Nobody really says what Rick Derringer did in this song. If he did all the lead, or if it's some of it's Vinnie, because you know
you could tell, like you mentioned before, you could really tell when Vinnie kicks in his style.
Right.
I mean, his notes are crystal clear. He's not all over the place. Mixing notes together. When he pulls out a note, you're going to hear it.
Right.
So I really think that Exciter, those opening and ending solos, I think they are Vinnie.
Yeah, I think they are too. Even that where it kind of goes into where they're going into the solo and they do that Exciter and it's that guitar that's like wah, wah, wah. Right. I think that's even Vinnie, because Vinnie has a very melodic way about his playing. I think you really don't get to Rick Derringer till it starts where it's like. Yeah,
I don't think Rick was much into using a Floyd Rose at the time, or a tremolo. I don't know if he used a Kaler or a Floyd Rose, but everything with dips in it.
Right.
I would just about guarantee that was Vinnie.
Right. That's what I've heard too. So on my rating scale, you know, I score, and you don't have to give it a rating. You can just tell me whether you like it or don't like it. But as far as my people goes that watches, my rating scale basically runs a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. 10 to me is kick ass. It's a perfect song. 1 is a song I can't stand. I usually skip it, and I wish I didn't ever have to listen to it ever again. And the middle of the road for me is 5. It's a song. If I scored a 5, I like it. I don't really like it, and I don't dislike it either. So Exciter kind of runs in that middle of the road vein for me. So it's not a song I'm going to skip it, but it's not one that I look forward to hearing either. So I score this a 5. So what do you think about Exciter?
I'm going to the other end of the spectrum. So we're talking about image. All right. So they took the makeup off. That was huge. Now at this point, you know, some of the fans are still hanging on. Fans wanted to hear something that was different than before. Right. Because this is a whole new era. Right. Makeup's gone. Street clothes are on. Right. And in my opinion, this song in particular set the tone for the album. Right. This to me is a number 10, 10 on a 10-point scale. It punches you in the mouth. It says, "Hello, we're back." Right. And to me, this song has more, what Gene would say, chutzpah. Right. Than many of the songs on the album.
And Paul's vocals.
Yeah, just screaming on
Paul's vocals great. You know, I have a hard time with Paul whenever he starts getting up into his upper register where his voice is bouncing off the ceiling. But his screams in this are great. Yes. I mean,
people made fun of that too. Yeah. I mean, Ace and Peter, they're on record talking about, you know, making fun of the way Paul would do his singing or his enunciations
of words. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a song on one of Peter's albums where he kind of makes fun of Paul. So yeah, I really think this is a great song to set the tone for the album. All right. Welcome to 1983, Kiss Is Back.
That's right. Type song. Right. Yeah. So track 2 is, we're gonna move on. It's a Gene song, "Not for the Innocent." "Not for the Innocent" was written by Gene and Vinnie Vincent, sang by Gene. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinnie plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. And this is pretty much the lineup for the rest of the album. It was written by Gene and Vinnie during the Creature sessions. although an earlier version was heavier and was sang by Paul. Gene sang the first verse, but Paul handled the majority of the song, including the chorus. There were some lyrical changes from the original version to the version on the album. Now, even though I'm a person, I like to go, and whenever I listen to an album on YouTube, I like to go on there and just use the YouTube search and look for, Lick It Up demos or, whatever album demos. And I'd never heard the demo for Not For the Innocent until today, actually. Mm-hmm. And I went online and, the music-wise, it's almost like the music of that demo, it's like they were still stuck kind of in the Creatures era. Because even though these two albums are very similar, they have definitely definitive sounds between the two of them. But it was really cool hearing Gene start off singing, and then Paul coming in going, "Better lock up your daughters, we're coming to your town." And then Paul sang the chorus too. He kind of did the bridge, and then he did the chorus, and then after that he basically sang. But I almost think this song would have been really cool. I always like when Gene and Paul trade vocals, and I think it would have been really cool if Gene would have sung the verses and the chorus, and maybe Paul would have done that little pre-chorus. But I still like this song. I mean, this is kind of more of a song that I get into. This is a great follow-up to Exciter because it's in a way it's a totally different song. It's a slower song, and it starts off. You can tell it's a Gene song when it starts because it's got that creepy da-na-na at the beginning of it, and then you get that and it's like. This is a Demon song. It's a Gene song. Dark, and he even sings in that, "I've been damned, I've been cursed." He even sings kind of in the, it's like, "Hey guys, I've took the makeup off," but the demon is still, the makeup was just the personification of that.
I like the fade-ins that Gene did as he's coming back in. It was very dark.
Yeah.
This album, in my opinion, was one of Gene's best vocally.
Yeah.
Just all around. The smoothness in his voice was... at this point, I believe that Gene, people can knock him all day for being a good musician or a good singer. I think he's one of the best,
right,
in the history of rock and roll. You can't deny it. Right. The makeup can only go so far, and here we are again talking about the makeup's off. You better, hand us something and deliver. Right. And they did, and that's a great song. It's very dark and it's very straight to the point. I would have tracked it a little bit later on in the album, but.
Yeah,
I definitely put that up there with the 7. I give it a 7.
Yeah, I give this a 6. Actually, I like it, but it's not my favorite Gene song on the album. So, but I do like it. I do like the fact that he's like you said, the makeup is off, but I'm still the demon. Damn it, I can still. I've been damned. I've been cursed. He's still it. And like I said, and then Gene's voice even today still sounds great. He's just really...
in the same key, too.
In the same key. It just really sounds great. Yeah. So we're going to move on to track 3. We're going to move on to the album title, Lick It Up. Lick It Up was written by Paul and Vinnie Vincent, sang by Paul. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinnie plays the solo, and Eric plays the drums. Lick It Up was a song that almost didn't happen. Vinnie came with the basic idea of the song, including the title and the melody. He took it to Paul, who wasn't interested. But then Vinnie took the song to Gene, who liked it, and then had him take it back to Paul a second time for Paul to look at it again, and then Paul decided to use it. Lick It Up, you got to have a hit. You know what I'm saying? You got to write an album. What I call it, you got to have a song for the masses, especially
the least amount of chords.
Yeah, you got to have a song for the masses, and you got to have a song that you kind of dumb down, and and this is it, and I like how this song starts off. I like just the simple beat and just the and then and I like every part about this song. I don't like the solo. It's not really a solo. It's just kind
of borrowed it from the Who, probably.
Right, but I don't like the chorus of this song. I don't like the lick it up, up. It's just, it's a lot of times I don't know why it does, but a lot of times choruses, especially ones that if all they're saying is the title of the song in the chorus, that kind of has a tendency to bother me. So I just feel like you're giving up a little on the song by just creating a song by a chorus that's only one line.
Right.
And you just kind of, and you end up repeating it. It gets a little boring to me. But as far as this goes, I mean, I appreciate what it did because it was a hit. It did get them a lot of airplay. The video got a lot of attention because that was that post-apocalyptic thing, and the video got a lot of attention, got a lot of airplay on MTV. Put Kiss back out there in the eyes of people. They got to see them actually moving and talking without the makeup and singing. So, but even then, if I'm just looking at the song, I scored a 5. It's middle of the road.
Isn't it interesting though how songs that become anthems are not written, oh my gosh, we're going to write an anthem right now.
Right.
It's contrived in the most basic, fundamental way, and it becomes a hit on its own. Kiss didn't intend on this to be a hit, even though it's tracked at number 3. But take yourself back to being 12, 13 years old, whatever it was back in 1983. This was a new anthem. This was rock and roll all night. This is, this gave, I mean, with the video, I mean, it was carnage. It was raw, and there was nothing much to it. And at the time, you're learning how to play guitar. Well, heck, I could pick this is easy. Dum 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 dum. It was it. And I was like, as a bass player, I'm thinking this is the greatest thing. I can mess with the crowd. Yeah, and at the same time, I'm playing my notes. So, I mean, I think this is a top 10 Kiss song. It's a staple, obviously. It's hung around, but you can't really, think about it now and try to recreate the song and think to yourself, well, I don't like it because of this. But back in 1983, this was huge. Oh, yeah. I mean, then plus with the advent of MTV in 1981, you have airplay over and over. So here I am waiting for Kiss to come. Oh, here it is.
Yep.
Here it is.
Yep.
So
I remember during this time. I remember whenever Kiss came out, whenever MTV came on. I remember the 2 videos I waited to see was I Love It Loud off of Creatures. Right. I remember when they world premiered I Love It Loud. I remember it.
Was it on Friday night?
Yeah, it was on Friday night. I remember it.
And that was the axe, because the next day I went to the music store and I saw an axe, Gene Simmons axe. It wasn't the bass, it was the guitar. And my mom, I needed a bass for jazz band. Anyway, long story short, she says, well, do you want that or do you want a bass? I'm like, oh God, I'd love to have that, but I need a bass because I'm playing a jazz band, and oh gosh, I want that. And anyway, I ended up not getting it.
But yeah, I remember this video too. I remember it. Like I said, I loved it. It was awesome.
That's awesome, man.
So what do you score? I scored Lick It Up a 5. You give it a 10.
I give it a 10. I give it a 10 because it's an anthem, and on a Live 3, they actually used it at the end of Rock and Roll. You thought the show was over on the Revenge tour. You thought Rock and Roll Night. Whoo. Boom, they go right into Lick It Up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the chills and the excitement of the crowd, I'll never forget it. I got to see it in the Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey. And that was something I'll never forget. Yeah. And thank God that ended up becoming an album, because that's something that I to this day, I love a Live 3 for that. You think it's over.
Yeah, and I like how they always started it live, because they didn't do the whole just Paul just don't want to wait till you know me better, and they'd go into it. I always loved whenever they changed that up. So we're going to move on to the next song. We're going to move on to Young and Wasted. Young and Wasted was written by Gene Simmons, Vinnie Vincent, sang by Gene. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinnie plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. The song was originally started by Gene in 1982 and was titled Like a Moth to a Flame. Vinnie then joined in working on the song with Gene, and it was renamed to Young and Wasted. This song was best known for being sang by Eric during live shows. And man, Young and Wasted. I mean, you come out and look it up, and then you come into that. And Eric is a beast on drums. I love Eric Carr on drums. He's just a beast, and he could do those complex bass beats, you know, that Peter just couldn't. You know, but he could do
two different schools.
Two different schools. But he could do those complex beats and everything. You know, Eric was definitely a more technical drummer than Peter, but Peter had more of a feel and a swagger to him. You know, he was almost like a Ringo-esque.
Peter was the founding member of one of the greatest bands in the history of rock and roll. He could have played terrible.
Right.
It didn't matter. He was Peter Criss.
Right. You know, he's almost like, I kind of compare him also to kind of like Steven Adler. Right. You know, Steven Adler played drums on one of the top 10 best rock albums ever made.
History, right.
But Matt Sorum would drum circles around him. Right. But it didn't matter. He's on Appetite for Destruction. Right. You know, he played on Paradise City and on Night Train and Welcome to the Jungle. Yeah. You know, so I mean, yeah, you know, it doesn't matter.
But yeah, Eric Carr did make this song.
Oh yeah, Young and Wasted was just
that was a great drum.
And just Gene just starts out with that voice like I fly to a spider. I mean, he's just the screams when he's like toll the bell.
You know, I mean, as a Gene fan, obviously I'm a Gene fan out of all. This was huge. Yeah. For Gene. I mean, like you said before, you know the makeup's off. This is me, and this was so. Those first four songs. The first four songs in this album, I was like blown away when I brought it home, put it on the turntable, and I thought, "Geez, this is the greatest thing." Yeah. And this is, you know, thankfully, you know, they stepped out of their element on this. Yeah. Because before, you know, you had one of my favorite albums, "Creatures of the Night." You had this album; it's almost like a continuation. And Gene was as raw and as he could be, and in your face as he could be. Not like on Unmasked and Dynasty. Right. This was a new Gene. He reinvented himself.
You almost feel like on some of the previous albums just before this, before Creatures and everything, you almost feel like, you know, on Dynasty and Unmasked and The Elder, you almost felt like Gene was absent. I mean, he had the only really good song I think by Gene on Dynasty was Charisma. I loved Charisma. Charisma was a Gene song. Right. I like it. But Gene, I remember reading in an interview one time that Gene didn't want to take the makeup off. He was scared to death to take the makeup off because he was going to lose. He felt like he was going to lose his identity.
It's a safety thing too,
right?
You get to become a superhero, right? You get to wear a cape,
right? Basically. He was going to be Clark Kent all the time now,
right?
You know, rather than being Superman, he was going to be Clark Kent all the time. And he didn't want that. And so I think that's why in the back of his mind, you know, and I know Gene Simmons, when he wants to do something, he'll set his mind to it and he'll do it. Right. He's proven time after time after time over the years. And whenever Gene said in his mind, damn it, they're going to know who the demon is. And that's why you get some of these songs from him that you get on this album. That's why he is very much, you know, even though Paul and Gene split songs 5 and 5, the most memorable songs for me on this album are from Gene. Right. You know, so.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, oh yeah. You hear that in this song over and over. Yeah. You know, you think you take on the world as a 13, 14-year-old kid when you hear this.
And plus the content in it too, you know. I mean, like I said, I was 83, I was 13, 14 years old. Yeah. You're just getting into that puberty and stuff, and here he is talking about a girl being young and wasted and all this stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, I can get into this.
It was relevant to 1983.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. It really was. Early 80s metal was kind of sleazy and everything. It was awesome.
I have to say that the true Kiss fans really, really hung on to this album.
Yeah.
The older kids that, you know, knew Kiss in the 70s, this was not their album.
No, they were up in their 20s and they were in their late teens going into their 20s by then. But those who discovered Kiss like in mid 70s when they're like 7, 8 years old, they're the ones I think that really held on to these early 80s albums and stuff. I think they're the ones that really held on to Kiss whenever Kiss was doing things that made people maybe just 3 or 4 years old, 3, 4, 5 years older than us go, screw them. I'd rather listen to Sabbath or Metallica or whatever, you know.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson or you know. But I love this song. It's highest I've scored a song so far on the album. I score this song a 7. I think it's a great song.
I'd go with the 7 on this as well.
Yeah.
Gene's vocals, tops.
Yeah.
Probably could sing it now.
Oh, I bet he still could. So we're going to go on to the last song on the first track, or the last song on the first side. We're going to go on to Give Me More. Give Me More was written by Paul and Vinnie Vincent, sang by Paul. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm. Vinnie plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. Vinnie took a song started by Paul and through his input turned it into this speedy rocker. So I've read some things about this, that Give Me More originally wasn't played at the tempo that it was played at, and Paul hadn't quite worked out the lyrical content and everything. So Vinnie came in and added a little riff in it that caused Eric to be able to pick onto a riff and pick it up a little bit. And then Vinnie added some lyrics to it and everything. I think Paul and Vinnie contributed really well together, even though I think they worked really good together, co-writing. I just don't think Paul was the biggest Vinnie fan. Like you said, he might have been threatened or whatever, but I think that this is a good song, but it's for me, coming off of Young and Wasted, it's a step down. It's like, but it's got some great riffs under the great riffs under the vocal, under the chorus, and under the verse and everything. It's got a great solo. It's got one of those Vinnie solos on it, where he's all over the place, and then it kind of comes into that out of it and everything.
I kind of look what you're just talking about, how they wrote together really well. I kind of look at this relationship with Gene and Vinnie as Gene's the person at let's say it's based upon a relationship. Mm-hmm. You think about a husband and wife, and you have a little bit of jealousy in there, mm-hmm. and you have Gene and Vinnie making some incredible stuff,
right? And
here's Paul over here. Right. Hey, I want to, go do this, and it's okay, all right, but we work better together over here. So it's like, somebody's stepping on someone's toes in this situation,
right?
And I really believe that had an effect on Paul,
right,
through this whole process up until the end.
Right.
This was a perfect song for it. I mean, it wasn't my favorite on the album. It was one of those that I often flip the tape,
right,
or flip the album,
right.
So
yeah,
I
give this song a 6 because there's elements about it that I really like, but still it's definitely a step down coming off of songs like Not for the Innocent and Young and Wasted. So we're gonna, like he said, we're gonna flip the album and we're gonna go to the first track on the second side, All Hell's Breaking Loose. All Hell's Breaking Loose was written by Eric Carr, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, and Vinnie Vincent. It was sang by Paul. Gene plays the bass, Paul plays the rhythm, Vinnie plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. This song was primarily an Eric contribution. According to Eric, the music you hear is exactly how he wrote it. He wrote it with the feel of a song like Led Zeppelin's Kashmir in mind, with some funk thrown in. Then Gene got his hands on it first, afterwards, and lyrically he couldn't come up with anything, so he turned it over to Paul and Vinnie. They took over and turned it into a rap type song. Eric reportedly was not happy with how it turned out. All Hell's Breaking Loose is one of the 3 songs in the history of the band in which all 4 members share a songwriting credit, the only other 2 being Love Theme from Kiss from the debut album and Back to the Stone Age from Psycho Circus.
One of my favorite songs on the album. Absolutely.
For
many reasons.
Back to the Stone Age?
No.
All Hell's Breaking Loose.
All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Okay, let me go. I'll let you go ahead and talk first. What about All Hell's
First song, second side.
Mm-hmm.
That first note, down, right there, that lick, you're hooked. I mean, whoever wrote that lick, whoever came up with that,
was Eric.
It was Eric completely.
It was Eric.
Kudos to Eric, because right there, we go back to side one. You're hooked right from the beginning on Exciter. Whoa, what is this song?
Right.
So this to me is I'd give this a 9, almost a 10.
Right.
Not for the fact that Eric wrote it because he's one of my favorite drummers of all time, or not because of anything else. Just because it grabs you, it keeps you interested, and that's what Kiss needed. The makeup was off. How are they going to keep people interested now?
Right.
So this is one of those songs that I believe captured that, and thank goodness they had a video for it, which was very similar to Lick It Up in the sense.
Yeah, it was almost like a part 2 type thing. Yeah.
A quick little story about this is a literature class in high school, and I had to do homework of writing a poem or a stanza or whatever it was, and I didn't do it. So I show up to class and, hey, did you do your homework? I was like, no, what homework? What are you talking about? So anyway, I'm thinking, oh, what can I write? Street hustler comes up to me one day, and I'm walking down the street, minding my own business. He looks me up and he looks me down and says, hey man, what be this, what be that? Why I gotta look like it? Anyway, I wrote it down and I handed it in, and my teacher gave me a look. Okay. Paul, you got an F for that.
You got an F. I am the breeze. All Hell's Breaking Loose is I think it's a really good song. I've always been a big fan of this song. I like the guitar solo in it. It was one of the first kind of rock rap songs out there. I like the fact that Eric wrote it and everything, and I just like the swagger it has to it and everything. I mean, it does have that.
It's not a complex song.
Not a complex song, but I don't know. I think it's I'd score it what a lot of people would say low, because I score it a 5. And a lot of people, I get a lot of flack because they go, why are you scoring stuff 5? I'm like, listen, people, 5 means I still like it. It's just I have to be really true to myself. And I think with this one, it's a song that I have heard for so long and so many that now whenever it comes on, maybe at 13, 14, I remember singing this song. I remember being, rock the nation.
Yes.
Now, all hell's breaking loose, and you were saying hell, so you got to cuss a little bit being 13, 14 or whatever, but now it's just I hear it and I'm just like, okay, I've heard this song about a billion times. I still love it, and and like I said, it was a great bookend for Lick It Up. It showed 2 different dimensions of the album, in my opinion, but neither one of them I don't feel are the best representations of the album, but they're probably the most commercial representations of the album. So, but like I said, I like it. I scored a 5, and
this is one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite. We haven't gotten to it yet.
Right.
But it was one that captured me and made me interested for the next song.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where if I flipped it a little bit earlier because of the last song, Give Me More, and it was like getting through the riffs
right
into this song. So a lot of good memories with this song. I think they played this on the tour. I did see that tour. I did see the Lick It Up tour. And I think they did play it. Hard to remember, though.
I know that they were real hit and miss about stuff that they played from Lick It Up. And I think the only songs that they actually play from Lick It Up now is maybe Lick It Up and maybe...
well, Paul does Million to One on a solo.
Yeah, does Million to One, right. So, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the next song. Speaking of Million to One, we're going to move on to the next track of Million to One.
When you walk out the door, you'll realize what you never did before. A million to one, that's what it will be. A million to one.
Million to One was written by Paul Stanley and Vinnie Vincent, sang by Paul. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinnie plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. It was written by Paul with heavy input and influence from Vinnie. I've actually heard some argue that this song is actually Vinnie's song, but Paul was not going to let Vinnie have a sole writing credit on a Kiss song. Yeah, it's very interesting. You get on the internet and you read a bunch of stuff, and I try to make sure if I read something once on the internet somewhere, I try to find another source to read it twice. You know, because I mean, and I know that, you know, sometimes they may copy stuff, but sometimes you hear stuff and you see it on reputable enough sites to where it's the truth. 1,000,000 to me, if Paul Stanley and Vinny collaborated on any song and was worth collaborating on any song together, 1,000,000 is the one song that I would not, you know, if they said you got to give up all other Paul Stanley Vinny collaborations, you can only have one, it would be 1,000,001. That'd be the one that I would keep, even though they worked together on some classics off of Creatures, like I Still Love You, you know. But on this album, I would definitely keep 1,000,001. This song is to be a power ballad. It's not your typical power ballad, and I love the way Paul sings the chorus, but the verse when he's in that lower register, and he's like, yeah, and then one of my favorite lines in this song, I hear it, it raises the hair on my arms, and it's the way he sings it when he goes, day after day, you're farther away, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, his vocals.
Oh my God, it's just like, oh.
And it was the last tour, the Live to Win tour that Paul did, and he sang that.
Oh, he nailed it.
Oh, it was beautiful. This actually is my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
Because it steps away from the whoa.
Right.
Musically, let's check this out for a minute. Yeah, his vocals on this, it was a continuation from I Still Love You.
Right.
Completely.
Definitely.
This song, to me, can still be relevant today.
Right.
One of my favorite songs, 1,000,001, that's a song that they can do live now and still get a decent response. I love the chord changes in the song. That's pretty much what hooked me to it in the first place. Then his vocals jumped out at me. I'm really big on the music first. I'm not too much on the vocals when I first listen to music. So this to me was this is a 10 all the way. This is one that it's got a hook in it, and like the line that you're talking about, where he's screaming that out. My goodness, man.
And I mean the way it starts with that weird chord that it's dun dun. You know, and they just kind of and they come into the riff, and then he comes in. It's like this, and he comes in, baby. Now that you've made up your mind, and I'm like, it's awesome. You know, it's like I said, it's
great.
And I know that you know, I don't know what to believe. I see Paul Stanley and Vinnie Vincent. I don't know if it was 50-50, 20-80, 90-80, or 90-10.
I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna say it was a high number. Because ever since this album, not until Revenge, have I felt this way about Kiss.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a Kiss fan. I don't care who's in Kiss.
Right, yeah.
I'm a fan of the brand. I'm a fan of the band. I'm a fan of the players. It doesn't matter to me. But when you get down to it, the era of all Paul songwriting, Animalize On, it was empty to me. I mean, there were great songs. Don't get me wrong. It's a part of history that I love, but it's not this. Hey, we're here. We're back.
They're definitely. I agree with you. Good Creatures and Lick It Up, and in the songs that Vinny is involved in on Revenge, they have a sound. Yeah. It's like you can pick them out. You can be like. You can, whether he's playing on them or not, it's just his style of writing.
And you don't hear this again until Revenge.
Yeah.
I was talking with Pete Evick, who recorded. He's Brett's guitar player and Brett Michaels' guitar player, and he's a producer as well. And we were talking about a song that we did, and he remixed it, our song for us. And the song's called Down. And when he remixed it, and the first thing I said to him, I said, man, you gave it an edge. Like Revenge. He said, man, it sounds, what you're saying, it sounds just like it. And that distinct sound, you didn't hear throughout the 80s. Ever since then. I mean, ever since this album. You heard a little bit on Animalize, but it was way different, man. Yeah. Way different.
Yeah. Animalize, to me, and I've already done my review of Animalize, but it's not out yet, so I don't want to give away too much of it. But to me, I'll say this without giving away too much. But Animalize is almost like, you know how if you take, like with Creatures of the Night, they did an original. And then with Lick It Up, they made another original, but they borrowed heavily from what they did on Creatures of the Night, but they still made an original.
It was a continuation.
But then with Animalize, it's like they took the original and started making a copy. And then they made another copy with Asylum. Yeah. And you know, when you make a copy of a copy, it starts to become fuzzy and watered down. And, you know, like with these two albums, and I think another big contribution on these two albums is the fifth member of the band, and that would be Michael James Jackson, because he's the one that gave us that big sound of the drums on Creatures of the Night.
Right.
The drums are a little pulled back. They're not as bombastic as they are on Creatures of the Night. But on Lick It Up, they still have a big sound. And then on Animalize, even though Paul basically produced Animalize by himself because Gene was off making movies, Michael James Jackson still recorded and produced the drums.
Right.
And then by the time you got to Asylum, it was just Gene and Paul producing, but they were producing the drums in a Michael James Jackson style, which they sounded close, but you could tell that they were emulating.
It was the sign of the times.
Right.
Kiss morphed themselves into what was relevant at the time.
Right.
And the early 80s in metal, it was new.
Right.
It was green for a lot of people.
Right.
And, you know, with the advent of mental health,
right.
This album is very close to.
I remember mental health when it came out. Oh man, I'm going to end up reviewing mental health one of these days. I'm going to review some of these early '80s albums.
What an
some of the early, like
had.
the first albums by bands like Rat, Motley Crue,
right.
some of the Wasp, some of those early '80s albums. Quiet Riot. I want to review some of those
because people they were trying to get an identity, not only Kiss. Right. Bands in general were trying to get an identity, and then you have MTV that comes along. You know, all the bands that were not MTV-esque or have the look for MTV fell by the wayside.
Right.
Some of the greatest bands in the history of rock and roll, Boston being one of them.
Right.
They were not commercially successful,
right.
And they were not, you know, MTV material. They fell by the wayside. So you had to have an image, and everyone was really trying to develop one.
Right. And then you had bands that, I know we're getting way off subject, but just follow along. But then you had bands that was really good bands, excellent bands, but I feel like they were smeared and marred by having to fit in with the image. Bands like Dokken. I mean, Dokken, you listen to them on the album with headsets on, you do not hear a glam metal band. But then you see a picture of them, they got the teased hair, the makeup, the wild crazy clothes and the spandex, and I'm like,
there's many bands
that's not who they are.
Exactly.
You know, if they would have been able to do what they wanted to do, they would not look like that.
Right.
You know, I think it took the advent of Tesla coming along and being like, we're going to make kick-ass music, and we're going to wear whatever the fuck we want to wear. We're going to wear street clothes if we want to.
Or Guns N' Roses
did the same thing too, you know, and so it took bands like that coming along to kind of try to start breaking bands out of the cycle of dressing like over the top.
But then you had bands like Winger, who to this day gets a bad rap. But you look at the players in that band.
Oh my gosh, Winger's one of those bands.
I mean, Rod, Reb, Kip, who is a musical genius.
Yeah, and Reb Beach is one of the most badass. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a badass guitarist.
And that is a perfect example of how people were trying to find an identity. And once you found it, you exploited it.
Right.
And that got you on the scene, and that's going to sell some albums because it was all about the image back then.
Right.
Music.
Used the image to sell albums, but that's how you had to get your music out there.
Oh, yeah.
You almost had
people
to
laugh at that. I mean, to this day, people look. Man, that's hair band music. I mean. Whatever. I don't call it hair band music. It was music of the times.
It was.
And if you want to associate it with hair, that's fine. But to me, some of the greatest musicians in the history of rock and roll came from this era.
Oh, they did.
Musicianship was unbelievable. No one can touch it. Then the 90s come along and made it okay to play crappy guitar. Right. So, and they couldn't copy that.
Right.
They had to come up with their own stuff. And this album in particular, you can't copy this stuff.
No.
I mean, it's really hard to copy the songs as a cover band. I've been in a cover band for 10 years, and stuff like this is really hard to cover. Mm-hmm. Vocally challenging, musically challenging, and the sound. I mean, if you can't pull this stuff, don't try it.
Right.
I mean, look it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that acoustically.
Right.
But $1,000,000 to 1, you better be spot
Oh
on.
yeah, $1,000,000 to 1. You better not pull $1,000,000 to 1 out and put it in your repertoire unless you're actually, because if you butcher it,
Yeah.
it'd be a song that would be very easy to butcher.
Yeah.
I mean, guitar
The
all the
tone.
way down. It's just the whole sound of it. So $1,000,000 to 1 to me is a 7. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. So it's a 10 for you, or where's it at for you? 10?
It's a 10.
Yeah, it's an awesome song. It's one of the songs that when I think of the album Lick It Up, I don't think of songs like Lick It Up and All Hell's Breaking Loose. That's what people think about. I think about songs like Not for the Innocent, So Far What We've Got To, Not for the Innocent, Young and Wasted, $1,000,000 to 1. This is really the first, it takes, now think about this, because I told you I think that Gene really stood out on this album to me. It took me to the second track on the second side to get to a Paul song that I really like. And guess what? He's getting ready, and this is his last track. He's done. Gene sings the last 3 songs on this album. It's tracked really weird. You know, you get an overdose of Gene here towards the end of this album. So, but it took
Maybe
me.
that's why it's my favorite album.
Yeah,
Or one of my favorite albums.
It took, you know, you had 4 songs by Paul on the first side,
Right.
and then you get to the second side. Second song is the first Paul song that I really have any like for on this album. So we're going to go on to the next song. We're going to go on to back to Gene for the next 3 tracks. We're going to do Fits Like a Glove. Fits Like a Glove was written by Gene, sang by Gene. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinny plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. This is the first one of only 2 songs on the album that Vinny does not have a co-writing credit on. So one of the things that impressed me about Gene on this is we've been talking about the whole review is that Gene was on top of his game, and I think it's on top of his game that he actually has songs on here that he wrote without Vinny, and to me. Fits Like a Glove is a kick-ass song, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Before I say my score, Fits Like a Glove is my favorite song on Lick It Up. I love Fits Like a Glove. It to me was a 13, 14-year-old boy's dream. I mean, because when I go through her, it's just like a hot knife through butter. And that riff comes like that. I played this song in a band before, in one of my bands I was in before, and this song is fun as hell to play. It's one of those songs, it's got a screaming guitar solo on it. Your guitarist is not going to play it the way Vinny does, unless he's really good. But this song is just fun to play. You know, baby, guess you win the prize where the sun never shines. I mean, it's just, and then that, yeah. And
it's just, as 13 years old,
God,
it's the epitome of what a 13-year-old boy was after.
Oh, yeah.
At the time. It was girls.
Oh, yeah.
And, you weren't going home to do your homework. You were going home to check out girls. And, back then, you were trying to hook up with whenever.
Yeah. Right.
So, this was a great song this is one of another favorite on this album. That scream that he does in this. That
whenever they're doing
yeah,
I mean, oh God, and like I said, Gene just
then
before
Eric's
the
back
solo,
in it.
and then Vinny comes in squealing on the solo. He hits that note right at the beginning. We
have to say, this is a song that another one. If you try and cover this, you better nail it, and you better have the balls to be out front with your instruments and have confidence in what you're doing, because this is one of those songs that Kiss should be playing at every show.
Oh yeah,
every show.
Yeah,
and
yeah, it is.
That's a whole nother story.
It's one, like I said, it's one of those songs to me. When I see this album cover on my playlist or whatever, man, I'm looking forward to Fits Like a Glove. I can't wait for it to get to that song.
I think he's done it with the solo band.
Yeah. I've been trying to look up and kind of trying to watch some of that stuff. Gene Simmons' solo band actually, Gene Simmons' band.
Those are awesome guys.
Really good. Yeah.
They're a cover band from Nashville.
Yeah.
Called the Big Rock Show.
Yeah.
And Ryan, awesome guitar player, great singer, great musician. Those guys are those guys hit the cash cow on that one.
Oh, yeah.
They got to play the rock cruise or the Kiss cruise with the big rock show, and it all just fell into place. Great interview on YouTube with Ryan Cook and the company that he supports, Vintage Guitars.
Right.
And I think they're pulling this one off. I think they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Gene still screams on it too.
I would love to be in a band that backs Gene. I mean, like I said, that'd just be awesome.
Yeah.
But Fits Like a Glove's an 8 for me, man. And an 8, like I said, I rarely give out 9s and 10s. I guess I'm just a little bit of a tough ass because
if you would have caught me on Unmasked or Dynasty, you would have got a lot less than a 7 for me.
but yeah. So Fits Like a Glove's an 8 for me. Where you score that?
I'd put this up at an 8.
Yeah,
as well.
I love it.
But this is another one. This is a Gene song that here I am, a big fan of Gene. Wow. Yeah. It's like. Yeah. I'm proud to be a Gene fan.
Yeah.
And pick on me all you want when I was a kid, being a Kiss fan. Yeah. Someone's gonna get punched in the mouth. Oh yeah. Because this is my boy right here. Oh yeah. The Kiss is my band.
Oh yeah. So people don't realize, and probably I got a lot of older people that watch my channel and my videos, and they comment in too, and they're our age and everything. There was a point in time when we were kids, it wasn't cool. If you wore a Kiss shirt to school, or brought your Kiss albums in your duffel bag to show them off and stuff, you better be ready to punch somebody in the face, because you're going to get told you're a piece of shit because, you like Kiss? Hey, they suck. And no, you didn't tell me the Kiss sucked. That didn't happen. Yeah. So, yeah. So we're going to go on to the next track. We're going to go into Dance All Over Your Face.
Well, you can see your
Dance All Over Your Face was written by Gene. It was sang by Gene. Gene plays the bass. Paul plays rhythm. Vinny plays the solo. Eric plays the drums. This is the second of only 2 songs on the album that Vinny does not have a co-writing credit on.
I have to say this will probably fall under the 7 score for me.
Yeah.
It was all right.
Dance All Over Your Face.
Yeah.
It's and sometimes it's all about tracking. I mean, you have Fits Like a Glove comes off the way it does. And it's like it's
a buzzkill.
Yeah, it's a buzzkill, and it does affect how you feel about the song, because it's like when you're listening to this on an album, you're high and you're coming off of this song, and it's like, hey baby, and then the chorus kind of annoys me because it's like, I'm gonna dance. But I love the way Gene screams in it. That he has some awesome screams in this one too. It's got a good solo. The riff is kind of, it's kind of not really here or there. I think Gene could have used a little Vinny on this.
Sure.
If he would have had Vinny on this and let Vinny give some input on this, as far as songwriting, the actual writing of the song goes, because he did a great solo on it. But to me, this is kind of a middle of the road. I don't hate the song, so I score this in a 5.
Yeah, I would put this about a 7. Yeah. I really would. You notice we're not talking a lot about it. Right. So it's at the end, and it's like, whew, you just got done running. Right. And it's like you're going to catch your breath, and that's what, to me, this song is. Yeah. I have to say, though, I mean, this is a little side note story on this. How much was the album back then? $9?
Probably $9.
$9.
Right.
The ticket for this show, I think, was... back then it was like $12 and like 75 cents for parking, or I don't remember what it was. I saw them at the Hollywood Sportatorium in Hollywood, Florida. Actually, it's Pembroke Pines, Florida. And I left that show with a concert shirt, so I bought a concert shirt. So at the time, I think those were like $15. Yeah. And I also got Vinnie Vincent's guitar pick. Right. So years down the road, I would say probably about 10 years ago, I go on to eBay and I see Vinnie Vincent's Kiss guitar pick for $350. And I didn't think nothing of it, so I went past it. I'm like, wait a second, I have that. So I have to say I got one up on Gene for this one, because I turned around and sold my guitar pick on eBay for $350. So Gene, got you, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to go to the last track. Speaking of Gene, last track by Gene, last track on the album, and On the Eighth Day.
And hold your head up high. And on the eighth day, God created rock and roll.
On the Eighth Day was written by Gene Simmons and Vinnie Vincent. Gene sang. Gene plays bass, Paul plays rhythm, Vinny plays the solo, Eric plays the drums. That's one thing I really do like about this album is that I kind of feel monotonous saying who plays what on the tracks on this album, and because but I do it because on previous albums it wasn't always Kiss, and so I would like to just point out as trivia who was actually playing on what, because sometimes you'd hear a cool song and it'd have a cool bass line in it, and you'd think it was Gene, but it was actually Paul or Ace.
Yeah, that's
or
one
even
of the things.
or even Eric. Eric Carr played bass on Under the Rose. You know,
Right. That's what kind of messed me up with the other albums. Here you bring in Anton Fig and Bob Kulick's playing guitar, and you kind of lost the vibe for it, and you can tell the direction where the music went.
right?
Here we're back to the band.
It's the core group.
And until somebody tells me different, like watching a long time ago when I first heard that Kiss did not play all the tracks on Kiss Alive, and it wasn't live, or everything was done, and it was disheartening. But at the same time, this far into Kiss history, you kind of knew something like that had to have happened.
Right.
So my feelings weren't hurt too bad.
Right.
But here we are, we're back to the basics. And I didn't know this back then. Nobody knew who did what on what album.
No, you didn't
You know, you thought Kiss was it. And,
Right.
you know, we were just talking about Love Gun. That was the last album that the four actually played the instruments,
Right.
their respective instruments.
Right.
So, you get into this album. Now, to me, I respect it more because they brought back what a band should be.
Right. That core group, very little outside writers.
Right.
You know, I don't think no outside writers. No outside writers. Some people, Vinny wasn't an outsider anymore. He was a official member of the band. So
Pay Vinny. Pay Vinny.
have this. Well, this album's recertified. Pay him for his certification.
To this day, I swear by this. This saved Kiss from death.
Yeah.
This was the album that solidified them as a real rock band.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, they were a joke.
Yeah. I've said on previous episodes where we'll start talking about something, and my son would bring up Vinny, and I'd always do a little side thing. I'd be like, by the way, PSA, Vinny saved Kiss. And
Sure.
I've had some people go, how can you say that? I'm like, dude, listen to
don't get me wrong. Kiss would have been around.
Yeah.
Now, would they still be relevant today? I don't think so.
Right.
I think at some point they would have fizzled. And I think their bank account showed that during the 80s.
Right.
I mean, they had some pretty decent tours back then with Wasp and whoever. I saw every concert up to that point. The shows were great. But they were fizzling away. We came to 1990 with Riot, with my mind's, what album was that?
Which one?
1990, I forgot. Anyway, too many concussions. Anyway, so you got with Rise to It, Forever.
Hot in the Shade.
Hot in the Shade, that's
I
it.
can't tell you what songs are off of Crazy Nights and Hot in the Shade because they sound so much alike.
They do. And at that point, I think Kiss...
They were so watered down by that. I haven't got to reviewing those yet, so I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
But they were so watered down by that point.
Right.
And that was when you had like external writers like Desmond Child and the Dionne Warwick or whatever her name is that wrote songs for other people, Michael Bolton and stuff. That's when you had them coming back in and getting in the mix, and they were watering down the band.
It was watered down and they were becoming unless you were a true Kiss fan, you weren't buying it.
Right.
And this is the problem that they were having. They were not relevant to the masses.
Right.
They had the Kiss Army. We're the Kiss Army. We're sitting here talking about Kiss, and they started back in 1974. Right. So if we want to get down to it, thank goodness for this album, because I really think we would not be here talking about Kiss if it wasn't for this album.
Right. Exactly. So on the 8th day, I've got here, this song was crafted by Gene and Vinny using parts of the song Boys Are Gonna Rock, which was demoed by Vinny's band prior to Kiss, called Warrior. The song later appeared on Vinny's first post-Kiss solo album, Vinnie Vincent Invasion. And Gene and Vinny took parts of the first verse and parts of the riff from the song and put them in On the Eighth Day. So, On the Eighth Day...
it's a rebellious song.
It's a rebellious song. I like the way Gene sings in it. I actually like this. Yeah. I mean, and it has that little military part in it. You feel like you're the warrior, like trying to call the Kiss Army back up, you know, and it's like, you know.
See, I bet they wrote that song thinking that was going to be their next anthem.
Right. That almost sounds like they're trying to make that the anthem. Let's close the album with the anthem, and it ended up being, you know, Lick It Up, you know. But, you know, and I knew that they probably was banking on a hit with Lick It Up because the album's named Lick It Up, you know. But, you know, it could have. But On the Eighth Day, it's, you know, it's good. I like how it just kind of do it. Whenever he's singing the verse, it's like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
You know,
and I really did. I
riff.
thought on the eighth day, God did create rock and roll.
Right.
That's just me.
So, you know, and God gave rock and roll to you, you know. Yeah. So it's just like...
Ironically, it was written by another band.
Yeah, but On the Eighth Day, I score this song a 6. I would have liked to sing the album... To me, it almost feels like the album fizzles out a little bit, and I would have liked to see it retracked because, like I said earlier, 3 Gene tracks at the very end is almost a little bit. I love me some Gene, but 3 Gene tracks, and it seems like, you know, you get Fits Like a Glove is great, and then Dance All Over Your Face, it kind of steps it down, and then On the Eighth Day, although I score it higher than Dance All Over Your Face, it's still almost, as far as the overall feel of the album, it feels like you take a step down even more, and it kind of fizzles the end of the album out. But, you know, it's still a good song. I like it. I scored a 6. I like it. I appreciate it for what it is, and I like Gene sounds great on it. You know, he has those good vocals, and it's got that little kind of the rhythm changes a little bit whenever they go to do the solo and everything. It kind of changes a little bit, and overall, I think it's a good song. So
I think it led into other songs for him.
Yeah,
he still had to keep his edge. He had to do something that pissed people off. I think the evangelistic side of this song, you know, you're flirting with the Bible, and you know what? You want to be rebellious,
right?
Way to hit him right there, hit him low. That's
right, because this was back during the Tipper Gore, just before the Tipper Gore stuff got kicked in, and you know, and you're talking about God, and you know the guy that's in the Knights in Satan Service band.
You're talking about God and a hot knife through butter.
Right.
What a way to piss somebody off.
You're talking about God, and you're talking about that he did something on the 8th day. Well, that's not biblical, you know, so it's like, you know, and...
kudos to whoever wrote that one.
Yeah. But, so, yeah, that's it. That's the album. Usually what I do at this point is we'll talk about our final thoughts on the album. What you think of the album is. What's your favorite song on the album? I think
I have to go with $1,000,001.
$1,000,001.
Melodically, I love the chord changes in that song.
Yeah.
I love Paul's vocals on this, so I have to go with $1,000,001.
Yeah, $1,000,001 is great.
Gene songs, all of them. I would put it number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, Fits Like a Glove is my favorite song on this, and it's my favorite Gene song. $1,000,001 is my favorite Paul song. It's probably my third favorite song, though, because I have to say that probably Fits Like a Glove and Young and Wasted are probably my 2 favorite songs on the album. And then $1,000,001, and then I like Not for the Innocent. My weakest song on the album, I don't score any song under a 5, and that's kind of, usually I have almost any album I have with Kiss usually has at least a 4 on it. The fact that I don't have any 4s, but I would probably say Dance All Over Your Face is probably, if I had to, you know, the 2 5s I've got is, I've got Exciter and All Hell's Breaking Loose and Dance All Over Your Face. And if somebody came to me and said, you can listen to one of those 3, you know, which one of those 3 is your worst, you want to get rid of, it'd probably be Dance All Over Your Face. Because I really like Exciter and I really like All Hell's Breaking Loose. Even though I scored them all the same, I like that one probably the least.
Okay.
So
I can go with that.
What you think is your least on it?
I would go with that as well. I have to go with Give Me More. that's probably my least favorite song
Yeah.
on the album. Just because the anticipation of I want to hurry up and get to, back then you just couldn't click to the next track.
Right.
So I wanted to hurry up and get, and most of the time I listened to this on cassette.
Right.
So, I wanted to hurry up and get to the other side.
Right.
Because I loved All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Right.
And MTV was pumping that like crazy when they were allowed to. So yeah. I don't say that now. I just think back then I just didn't listen to it much.
Yeah, and what's funny is my son was talking about it because my son being 23 and he's a new Kiss, and it's kind of funny because my son has been reviewing Kiss albums with me, and it's funny that his favorite Kiss album so far, being 23 years old, and some listen to some of these albums for the very first time, and his favorite Kiss album up to the point that he reviewed with me was The Elder. He actually liked The Elder better than. And his album before that he liked the best was Alive, I believe.
Well, just the fact that he likes it is super fucking cool.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he likes The Elder.
Yeah, he scored an Elder, the whole album. He scored his scores averaged out like an 8.
That's good parenting.
I gotta be proud of that, Stephen. You're doing good, but
oh my gosh, I don't know many Kiss fans that like that album.
But we were talking about, and he said that he kind of wishes that he would have grew up in the generation that had cassettes to flip or albums to flip,
right.
Because you get a better sense of. Because what he would ask me is he would be like, whenever I'd give him something to listen to, I'd be like, okay, I want you to listen to this album. And what he'd always ask me is he'd be like, okay, because of course you go on Amazon, you got track 1 through 10, and he'd always ask me, he'd be like, okay, Dad, what's the first track on side 2? Because he would want to know where you flip the cassette or where you flip the album. He wanted to know because one thing that he always noticed was he came up with he said one thing he realized, he's like, and plus we were going up to him, listening to him in chronological order. He says, you want to know what's one thing I noticed with Kiss? And I said, what's that? He says, they always came back on the side 2 with, okay, we're either going to continue in what we're doing or we're going to show you something new on this album. And he said that, and I said, yeah, you're kind of right. And he said that what he always noticed that they kind of did was, when he started telling me about it, I'm like, you know what, you're right. The last track on their album, a lot of times alluded to what their next album was going to be like. It was almost like a leeway into it. Not always. Okay. Because I can't say that On the Eighth Day really alludes me into Animalize, which is where they went from here. Because they go from On the Eighth Day, and then they start off Animalize with that, with Mark St. John and everything.
Gene said this, and it's true. It's true to this day because they had to do it. Gene said, evolve or die. Mm-hmm. They did it.
Mm-hmm. They did.
And this was a great album where they evolved, and it's ironic though. A friend of mine that we used to do our radio show, Justin Steele, you better be watching this. We used to do that radio show. We would talk about stuff like this.
Yeah,
he's a huge Kiss fan, and he was an Ace Frehley fan.
Right,
and he actually took me to go meet Ace back then. But yeah, we talked about this, and it was huge. I mean. We talk about street cred, and I get into conversations with Kiss fans, and I say, yeah, I got to see Kiss, the original 4, back in the 70s. Not a lot of people can say that nowadays.
I saw him in '79 on the Dynasty. I saw him in '79 on the Dynasty tour in Charlotte Coliseum.
Yeah, so when when I talk with Kiss fans, a lot of times they're later on, where they fell off the wagon. Mm-hmm. So you don't have many Kiss fans doing this right now
that have stuck through it all the way,
regardless if it sucked, because we all got through The Elder. In my opinion, it wasn't my favorite album. It was conceptual.
They tried to make Pink Floyd's The Wall, and they failed.
Right,
and there's a lot Dynasty. There's a lot of guitar solos in there, even though some of them are Ace. A lot of them are. One thing that I really appreciate, and go back and listen to The Elder again, and realize. And no, you can watch my review and I tell you which songs they are, but go back and listen to and realize that 90% of the guitar solos on The Elder are Paul. And when you hear
and he's not a soloist.
No, he's not a soloist. But when you hear some of these songs, but they sound very David Gilmour-ish. They had then that same key, that same running notes, like the solo on "Just a Boy." It sounds almost like a Pink Floyd. It sounds you could have stuck it in "Wish You Were Here" at the end of it. You know, I mean, so it's But yeah, I mean, Kiss is one of those bands. They did what they did. They did what they had to do.
Well,
to
at the
stay
same
afloat.
time, too, it's like Ace said, they were beating a dead horse.
Right.
So they had to make a change. They had to do something drastic. And part of that was taking the makeup off, and that did affect album sales.
Right.
Oh, is that Kiss? Oh, yeah, I want to get this. That's who? Oh, yeah, Ace Frehley? Oh, is that Peter Criss? Well, there's Gene, obviously.
There's Gene.
So you get into that situation with this album to where, you know, it's a great album, but at the same time, they lost a lot of people.
Oh yeah, they did. They did. They took off the makeup. The shows changed. The mystique went away. Everybody knew what they looked like. Because I remember the days where you saw magazines. You'd open up a magazine and you'd see it'd be like on the cover of it, Paul Stanley caught without makeup, and you'd open it up and you'd be on the cover and he'd be like, you know, covered.
Yeah, what's the bodyguard?
You know,
Big John.
Yeah, Big John. You know, I believe it was Ace. He's like had his hand over his face, and Big John's standing there pointing because a cameraman or somebody would catch him.
He had his hand back.
Yeah, a cameraman would catch him, and
there was so many pictures of them back then that are now released.
Yeah, it's like now it's like on the internet, but they used to like buy cameras, buy the film. You know, or just take it, you know, whatever. But because that's what they wanted to protect. You'd see interviews with them, like on 2020 or whatever, where they're showing them from behind. I remember that interview where they're sitting at the picnic table outside with the woman, and they're from behind, and they're talking, and they put up their name and show the little picture with their makeup on, and all you see is four long-haired guys from behind, you know, talking. So,
and I love the fact when they did take the makeup off on MTV, the fact that it was James J. Jackson, or was it J.J. Jackson? I don't think it was James J. I don't know what his name was, but it was J.J. Jackson. And you know, you can see that glimmer in his teeth, that shine in his teeth, and those cheeks all shining. He was excited about this.
Oh, yeah, he was.
Because this is the biggest thing that hit MTV.
Yeah.
I mean, besides MTV.
And he was the one doing it.
And he was the one doing it.
I'm the guy that unmasked Kiss.
I'm glad he did it. I really am.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the album, man. I mean, my final thoughts on this album is I feel I pretty much echo even with the good songs and the bad songs on it, this is an album that I feel like Kiss knew that they had to make. I mentioned it in my statements that Kiss, although they knew that the fans didn't warm up to Creatures of the Night, they knew that they had to take what they'd done with Creatures of the Night and take it a step further. They knew they had to take the makeup off.
They owe Vinny big time.
And when they took the makeup off, they had to step up the music.
Right.
Because they couldn't fall back on the gimmick of the makeup anymore. They had to, and they had kind of started to do that whenever they had became Super Kiss after the solo albums and Dynasty and everything, and they become Super Kiss with their costumes and their the lions' heads and you know, and the costumes that was so ridiculous. They really, when you saw them actually perform, they were only in like 70% of that costume. They had become Super Kiss, and they had saturated the market so much that they were over branding themselves, and here they was, all that branding was gone. You didn't even get a poster, and they had to the music. If the music on this album had not done what it did or been what it was, like I said, they may have still been around, but they wouldn't be as relevant. They wouldn't be what they wouldn't have went on to become what they became. There wouldn't have been a reunion tour.
Right. Well, they had to do it again.
Right.
Kiss ran its course,
and then they had to put the makeup back on.
And they had to evolve or die. People wanted that right there.
Right.
People want that. You know, strangely enough, I kind of see this happening with Journey right now.
Yeah.
Without certain members, Steve Perry in particular.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, this album, one of my favorite albums. You know, people talk about their favorite makeup era or their non-makeup era. I'm just a Kiss fan.
Right.
And I love this album.
Right.
It's up there with Creatures. And Revenge. These three are tops. But if you want to go back to the non-makeup days, you know, these are the albums that you talk about.
Right.
And if you go back to the before,
Right.
You talk about the albums that really hooked you in the beginning.
Right.
So it's a great album.
Yeah,
Great. One of my
really
favorite
is.
albums.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the songs on the album and my rating for the songs, as well as my overall rating for the album. For Exciter, I gave a 5. Not for the Innocent, I gave a 6. Lick It Up, a 5. Young and Wasted, a 7. Give Me More, a 6. All Hell's Breaking Loose, a 5. A Million to One, a 7. Fits Like a Glove, an 8. Dance All Over Your Face, a 5. And On the Eighth Day, a 6. That's a total of 60 divided by 10 tracks, which is a 6.0 for the album. So where that leaves Lick It Up as far as my overall Kiss album scores, if you see on your screen, Alive 2 is still number 1 at 7.75. Creatures of the Night is number 2 at 7.66. Then Ace's 1978 solo album at 7.44. Dynasty at 7.22. Rock and Roll Over at 7.1. Alive at 7.06. Paul 1978 solo album 7.0, Love Gun 6.9, Destroyer 6.77, The Elder at 10 at 6.4, Dress to Kill at 11 at 6.3, Lick It Up comes in at 12 at 6.0, Debut, Kiss's debut is 5.9, Unmasked is 5.81, Higher Than Hell 5.7, Gene's 1978 solo album 5.54, and Peter's 1978 solo album at a 5.5. All right, well, Scott, I appreciate you coming.
All right.
And hopefully we'll have him back in the future for but you can probably, if you're listening, you can probably figure out what album it'll be. But appreciate you coming. And
Thank you, man.
This is Brant, this is Scott for In My Head channel, and I'll see you next time.